guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you still remember me. So today I have an absolutely crazy Annapolis game for you. Honestly, one of the best Annapolis games I've seen so far. It's gonna be a textbook example of how to play American heavy cruisers in general, and because I suck at this game, I'm featuring the replay of a friend of mine, GarrusBrutus. You might have heard of him. He's also been in several videos on Robin's channel, and he's just an absolute beast in cruisers. Before we focus on the gameplay, let's quickly review Garrus' commander build and upgrades. So I think it's an interesting build that mainly focuses on survival. Personally, I would have got rid of incoming fire alert, last stand and demolition expert and would have taken top grade gunner instead, because with 11 km Annapolis concealment is not that great and I find myself brawling within my standard detectability range relatively often during the late game, and I think propulsion mod 1 is also vital for cruisers, with a playstyle akin to Annapolis, because sometimes you get surprisingly spotted by a plane and then you just want to get moving as quickly as possible. But what do I know, Garrus will definitely prove in this match that his own build works quite well. So I don't know if you remember the lineup, but there are a lot of tier 9 ships in this game and there's also only one super ship per team, so Garrus is absolutely the top dog in this game. And with a lot of power comes a lot of responsibility, and sometimes it's just sad when you see your only super ship run it down in the first few minutes. I've even seen complaints on Reddit about the fact that you can now buy super ships in the Lighthouse auction, and that it's just a terrible idea of wargaming to possibly give so much responsibility to new players without high tier experience. I kind of agree, but if we are honest, you see terrible players with thousands of battles all the time, and for months now there have been tier 10 subs sailing around commanded by players who barely have 300 battles and struggle to reach 45% win rate. So I think the impact of bad players is generally overestimated, although super cruisers in particular can make a huge difference in the hands of excellent players, as we'll see in this match. So Garrus has picked a spot here that is very popular with the Moin players. You can shoot comfortably across this island and remain unspotted, as long as there is no DD or other sneaky ship spotting you from the southwest corner of the map. But of course you also have to be careful not to get spotted through one of the gaps between the islands if you stray too far from cover. So far Garrus hasn't been noticed much by the enemy, and as you can see, the enemy daring is in the cap and the Yugumo is way up north, so there is very little danger of being spotted unplanned, and Garrus can concentrate on raining fire on the enemy ships that dare to cross the gap between the big island in F3, F4 and the next big island in G3, G4. I really want you to pay attention to how effectively Garrus uses AP in this match. You can see that even battleships get chunked when he hits the upper armor belt or superstructure, and this way he will accumulate a huge damage number at the end of this match. He could have wiped out that Seattle right there using the gimmick fire mode, but if I recall correctly, Garrus will not touch his F button once during this game, which in my mind requires a great deal of shooting discipline, but everyone has certainly had the experience of having enthusiastically used the gimmick mode only to find that all salvos fall short into the water because the enemy ship turned out a tiny little bit. But honestly, I think ships like Condé and Annapolis would be fine without the F button, and the current trend with ships like Patrie and others still under NDA shows that super ships can work without super gimmicks. So we are not even 4 minutes into the game and Garrus has already passed the 100k damage mark, which emphasizes my point quite well in my eyes, but it must also be said that the enemy ships are leaving cover one by one, setting broadside like in a shooting gallery. Surprisingly, not a single ship has been sunk yet, although Garrus has had no shortage of targets so far. But we will soon find that Garrus' allies are doing an even worse job of survival than the enemy, as the first battleship of the green team is finding its way to the seabed just as we speak, and a destroyer will soon follow. Of course, we do have the notorious Schlieffen running it down in the first quarter of the match, this time on the opposite side in the Charlie cap, but the enemy Schlieffen has not only killed the allied Z-44, but you can also see that the German BB is pushing the Des Moines into a crossfire, and without cruiser and DD support, the upper part of the map can be considered lost. Garrus' team does have a slight numerical advantage in the south, but it's really time to convert that advantage into either kills or cap control so that the match doesn't get out of hand at this early stage. Fortunately, there are some enemy ships on low HP, and as long as Garrus stays angled, he can push as there are no battleships with crazy overmatch in this part of the map or in this battle in general. However, not only is the allied Des Moines sunk, but Garrus' team's Shima carelessly wandered into the radar of the enemy Seattle, or perhaps the radar of the enemy Annapolis, perhaps both at the same time, which would be quite an achievement, and now the green team is already 4 ships behind. That being said, the enemy Annapolis is now stuck bow in front of 2 battleships and a handful of cruisers, so at least 1 kill for the green team should be likely in the near future. In general, Annapolis is not better suited than Des Moines for fighting in open water, as she also only has 30mm plating and deck, but sometimes it can work out as long as you make sure you don't end up nose first in front of the enemy team. The radar of the Des Moines behind Garrus caught the gearing, which I initially mislabeled as a daring, and at first she did a good job of dodging the shells via speed juking, but frankly, as a destroyer, you best get out of there as fast as you can once you're under fire from an Annapolis, as the American destroyer will quickly discover. This is an unexpected kill for Garrus' team and levels out the spotting advantage the red team had gained by sinking the Shimakaze, and I also find it worth mentioning that Garrus has already received the Confederate achievement after less than 7 minutes. But as you can see, Garrus' battleships are having quite a hard time with the enemy supercruiser, so it's up to Garrus to take matters into his own hands. Given the fact that there are 3 battleships on this flank besides the Annapolis, 2 of which are very healthy, it's important that Garrus doesn't put himself in a nose-in position as well, so it's understandable that he turns away. I don't remember the exact caliber of the enemy Baji or whatever she's called, it's an Izumo, but I think it was 410mm, so it should be possible to bounce most of her shells if you angle properly, provided she doesn't hit the superstructure or aft. However, it has to be said that the current angle Garrus is at to the Japanese battleship is not entirely ideal, so as long as you can get all 4 turrets to bear so comfortably, there is a chance that the rear of the ship in particular will be very vulnerable to penetrations. The enemy Baji, let's just call her Izumo, okay, doesn't have much luck with her aim though, and it's remarkable how quickly she melts away under Garrus' barrage. Sinking her will restore the numerical balance between the 2 teams, assuming no other ally is sunk, and by the way, there's the high caliber achievement after less than 8 minutes. And while it's likely that the opposing team will soon have a 3-to-1 cap advantage, it should be an easy task for Garrus' team to recapture at least the Bravo cap, as the remaining enemy ships in the area are in retreat. Except of course for this Kurfürst, who apparently did not get the memo to retreat and who should go down quickly under the concentrated fire of up to 5 ships. Note that Garrus immediately switches to AP when the Kurfürst turns broadside, really a very good switch between the appropriate ammo types here, but around this time Garrus also makes the only major mistake when he opens his sight too much, as the last salvo from the German battleship is in the air. He does take a big chunk of damage, but it's not the end of the world, as Garrus has still 2 charges of his repair party left. The enemies are capturing Charlie, but the allied Smolensk is on her way to take Bravo from the red team. The back and forth on destroyed ships continues, however, as the friendly Yamato on the eastern flank is finally sunk by the Howden Leo. We haven't seen the Missouri for a while, but the opposing Napoli was just briefly detected next to the Bravo cap, and the question is whether the Italian cruiser will actually try to stop the push by Garrus and his teammates. If she's fully built for concealment, the Napoli should actually be able to outspot Garrus Annapolis, but based on her recent position, she could also be surprised by Garrus in the middle of her turn, and that's exactly what happened. Interestingly, Garrus spotted her first, and the Napoli realized her mistake and tries to escape using a smokescreen, but Garrus is already too close and is able to keep her detected with his radar. What follows next is just pure humiliation, because once the Napoli has pulled her smokescreen, between Garrus and the Missouri there is no way for her to spot Garrus apart from her plane, but I assume that's on cooldown, and so Garrus can batter his Italian adversary for the full duration of her smokescreen, while the Napoli just helplessly tries to escape without even firing a shot. The kill on the Napoli would give Garrus' team the edge on points and ships, and with the past performance of his teammates in mind, this kill is exactly what his team needs right now. As you can see, the Missouri in the background is basically at full health, and while she could technically overmatch Garrus' bow, she shouldn't really pose a threat as long as Garrus keeps an eye on his angling. It is impossible for the enemy Napoli to escape Garrus' relentless pursuit, and her fate should be sealed at any moment. This hardly ensures that the green team will get a points advantage, but it's very likely that the Missouri will meet the same fate as the Napoli. With this kill, Garrus fully deserves his Kraken achievement, but the match is not over yet, and I can guarantee you that Garrus will not settle for 5 kills. While the Missouri is angled, Garrus naturally shoots HE, but once again we can see him switching directly to AP at the slightest sign of a broadside to punish even the smallest mistake of his enemies. We've just passed the 300k damage mark after just 11 minutes, mind you, and it's just brutal to see how quickly the Missouri is losing her hit points under the never-ending rain of armor-piercing shells. As you can see on the minimap, the Thunderer that accompanied the sunken Yamato is trying to catch up with her teammates again, and for some reason it looks like the enemy team has given up the chase. Now that the Missouri is destroyed, Garrus' team is in a very comfortable position to win the match after all, as the green team now has a 100 point and 2 ship lead. We don't know how many hit points the remaining enemy ships have left, but Garrus' team seems to be in pretty good shape, and besides there is no one to defend the opponent's alpha cap, which is right in front of Garrus. We can make out a couple of shells in the distance, so the enemy Yugumo is probably spotting someone right now, but so far we are completely in the dark about what the enemy team is planning. As long as we don't see any opponents, I'll speed up the gameplay a bit at this point. Eventually the Smolensk spots the enemy Schlieffen as well as the enemy Des Moines, and it looks like the remaining opponents want to stop the green team's advance on Charlie. However, the German battleship embarks on a terrible crossfire, though it has to be said that the opposing team has hardly any options left to turn this game around, so the sinking of the Schlieffen doesn't matter much anymore in the grand scheme of things, and luckily it is Garrus who can hereby credit kill number 7 to his account. He quickly shifts his attention to the Howden Leo, but she is about to disappear behind an island, so perhaps the use of the funny button would have been worthwhile here. On the other hand, the enemy Des Moines is now in range, and without the cooldown triggered by the use of the F key, he can keep his guns firing. The Des Moines is stuck in a really bad position, just like the Annapolis earlier, bow in front of several ships in the open, so there's no question that she will go down, it's just a matter of time. What's more interesting is who can secure that kill. I can guess that Garrus smells blood at this point. With 7 kills already on his account, I would imagine that the thought has certainly crossed his mind if he can possibly reach double figures in kills in this match. But as a rain of fire pours down on the Des Moines, the Howden Leo is unfortunately in cover and also has very few hit points left. She managed to sink the Thunderer, but there is no way for Garrus to get to the Dutch cruiser before his teammates finish her off. Still, he got the Des Moines kill, frag number 8, a really impressive number, and there's still the Yugumo left. At this point, however, I will speed up the gameplay again, because unfortunately the Yugo mode turns out to be a spoil sport. Although she briefly opens fire without need while trying to take Delta, she only makes another appearance at the very end, the classic haha, I'll shoot one last time before the round ends, but she does not stay within radar range of Garrus or the Allied Des Moines apart from that. Therefore, we unfortunately have to end the match with only 8 kills. I'm just kidding, of course. This was an absolutely fantastic match by GarrusBrutus, as not only the amount of damage and kills testify, but also the crazy amount of over 4100 base XP. Unfortunately, Garrus was unable to submit a detailed report. I would have loved to see a detailed breakdown of the damage, so we can only assume that the majority of his damage was caused by the clever use of AP. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the match. If so, feel free to leave a like. I hope to catch you next time. See you soon and take care. And would have taken top grade gunner instead, because with elf am elf tot die kuil. But around this time Garrus also makes the only